Unexpected pause in the trial of the woman accused of causing a crash that killed two Lowcountry teenagers. Proceedings came to a halt this morning after the defendant was taken from the courthouse by ambulance. Live 5's Elijah Brown joins us from the Dorchester County Courthouse with where that case stands tonight.
Yeah, what was expected to be another full day of testimony instead took an extremely unexpected turn. Just before court got underway, Ashner Nelson was taken outside of the courthouse and into an ambulance. It forced the judge to dismiss jurors for the day before testimony could continue. Video shows emergency crews wheeling Nelson from the courthouse and loading her into an ambulance. The unexpected interruption came after jurors spent the first 2 days of trial hearing from witnesses who described the moments before and after the August 2024 crash. One witness testified he watched a gray Nissan speed through a red light moments before the collision. Another driver, who was caught in the three-car crash, told jurors the impact felt like being hit by a train. The judge dismissed jurors shortly after Nelson left the courthouse and told them to return tomorrow morning at 8:45. At this point, it's still unclear whether Nelson will appear in court tomorrow or whether any of these medical emergencies will affect trial schedule. We will be inside court tomorrow morning and send you guys updates both online and on air. Reporting right here in Dorchester County, Elijah Brown, Live 5 News.